My name's Ian.
I'm Trish. It was my father, Leslie Fredrick Long, who was the prisoner of war. That was a picture of Dad when he was in the forces. And this is him when he was at home with me as a youngster.
Leslie was in the Royal Signals, and he arrived in Singapore in January 41. In 1942, he was taken prisoner by the Japanese, and the following year he was shipped to mainland Japan. Well, it was when at the fall of Singapore that he was taken prisoner. I mean, the signal 5 days before the surrender, it was sent to General Percival by Churchill, said that commanders, officers and all men should die fighting for their country. There would be no surrender. It sounds very harsh, but that was how it was. And I think General Percival did the right thing to surrender, because there was no hope for them, really. He was in Japan from 1943 till August 45, when the Japanese surrendered. When he was first taken prisoner, he was in Changi, and the Japanese wanted volunteers to work on the docks. So Les, along with 30 other people, volunteered, and one of the things they were doing was labelling goods to go back to Japan, and one of the main things they had were sewing machines. They used to take the bobbins from the sewing machines, and the machines would go off to Japan absolutely useless, and then they would sell the bobbins because they were small enough to carry on themselves, and that gave them extra money to spend on food. He was in Changi for about just under a year. When they arrived in Japan, the ship, there was British, Dutch on it, and the British were taken separately, and they went to Aomi Camp, which was a camp which was on the site of Denki, or the Denki Quarry. That was where they were then used for moving and blasting the rock, and that for making the fertiliser. I think it was very hard because having been in Singapore and the conditions they'd been kept under till then, and the transporting, they were very weak. And it was a case that if a man was ill, if he could stand up, well, he could go to work. But Denki were the people who owned the quarry, and they were responsible for feeding, clothing and billeting the prisoners, and the Japanese army were there purely for security. Well, the Japanese did tend to take over and run the camp, whereas it should have been Denki themselves doing it. In 1945, Tetsuji Kondo, who was the president of the company, wrote to every single prisoner that survived in the camp. This is to Leslie. It says, "My dear sir, 2 years have passed since I bid you farewell at Aomi Station. I beg to pay my highest esteem and courtesy for your hard work while you were at Aomi for a long time, and at the same time I am anxious to know about your welfare since then. We Japanese are endeavouring to bring about a spiritual revolution in speeding the establishment of a democratic, peace-loving and cultural nation. I trust Japan will become a comfortable land in the near future, and I hope you will have a good chance to visit Japan to inspect her old customs and manners. Please give my best regards to your family. Believe me, yours sincerely," and it's signed by Tetsuji Kondo.
I don't really think he was too happy with it, because he did suffer, and he was still suffering badly when he got home. And I think anything to do with coming from Japan was still nasty to him. I don't think he believed it. I think he just thought it was something they would just write into everyone and that was it.
I think it must have meant something in one way, because, I mean, normally if you'd got that, you'd throw it away. But he kept it with the envelope.
Yeah.
He kept that with his
still
papers.
In the envelope.
It's still in the envelope now at home.
It doesn't make me feel any better, because I know that right up to the end, he was still very anti the Japanese. Right till he died, he never spoke of them with any respect or anything. Dad had a pub in Oxford, and 2 Japanese students came in one night, and he served them, took their money, and then tipped both their drinks down the sink, and he said, "You can get out." And my mother stepped in then and said, "No, Les," and he had to go into the back room because he was in a real state, shaking, and Mum served them, but he didn't come out again until after closing time because he felt so disturbed. I grew up knowing that anything to do with Japan, he would just go into another room and sort himself out. Very traumatised, yes, and he used to shake. He suffered badly over there. I think I've slowly got over it, but I know our son never got over it. He was in hospital and had to have an operation, and the surgeon came to him at night and spoke to him and said, "Right, Warren, I'll see you in the morning, we're going to operate." And as he walked out the door, all Warren said was, "Over my dead body." He said, "I don't ever want a Japanese operating on me." He said, "They're not getting a knife to me." 10:30 that night, the surgeon came to the hospital with his passport and said to Warren, "I'm not Japanese, Warren. Here's my passport to show you I'm Chinese. Can I operate on you?" And he said, "Yes, I'm happy for that." Things are said and you don't realise, and he'd obviously heard that, well, we'd told him that Dad was a prisoner and different things about the war, but we hadn't gone into too much detail. But he obviously knew the way my father reacted when anything Japan was spoken about. He knew that things hadn't been good for him. I think as time goes on, we're not dealing with the people that dealt with Dad. I think the Japanese are affected as much as we are. And I think forgiveness should come around eventually.
Ian's written books about your dad, but you've never read them?
No, I've looked at odd bits, but Dad never wanted me to know about it, and I've never read any of them as all the way through or anything. I still can't bring myself to read them.
There was one main book which I wrote, to Aomi and back, was just his journey from when he signed up to when he came home. And I think it was important to do it, really for the family, I mean for his daughter, and for it to carry on, because otherwise these things get sort of washed away and they disappear. It wasn't a book I had published, it was a book I did and made so many copies, and one went to Denki, one went to the Signals Museum, one at the National Arboretum. But it's just so that the story of what was happening to the people and how it happened was carried on.